Welcome back to Talk of the Town. We're honored to have on our show today Mark Sanford, representing the 1st District of South Carolina, which covers the low country of the state of South Carolina, and was sworn into the 113th Congress after winning a special election in May 2013. Having represented South Carolina as governor from 2003 until 2011, we have seen his reform accomplishments and his efforts to rein in wasteful spending and reduce the national debt. Today, he shares with us his continued level of focus on preventing wasteful government spending and his concern with the current budget strategy as we approach 2014. Welcome to the show.
Pleasure, thank you.
So, I know the other day there was a vote on the Ryan Murray budget deal. What was your vote on that?
My vote was no. I think that, in any negotiation, whether it's a government negotiation or business negotiation, there's a point at which you ought to be willing to walk away. And if you're not willing to walk away, you really have no negotiating strength. I think to a great degree, though, again, I wouldn't in any way criticize Paul Ryan or Patty for what they tried to do. Republicans needed to have the ability to walk away, and basically they didn't. Republicans were scared to death of another government shutdown and getting a black eye as a consequence of that blame coming to them. And so basically what this deal amounted to was paying $63 billion to avoid another government shutdown. Maybe that's too simplistic, but if you really break it down, that's in essence what the deal did. It locks in no government shutdown for the next 2 years,
right.
But it costs $63 billion of additional money really in the next 24 months and largely in the next year. And paying for it won't come until year 10, 11, or 12. Now, 10 years out in the world of politics is several eternities. So what it means is we're going to increase spending, blow open the caps. I'm not saying the sequester was a great method. I wasn't there at the time it was enacted. I think that across-the-board cuts are particularly messy ways of doing business in government circles. I fought against them when I was governor. But it was the only spending restraint in Washington, D.C. And basically this deal blew open that spending restraint. I think it's going to open the door to much more spending going forward, well outside of the sequester levels that it uncapped.
And I think I read something where it's actually already happened.
Exactly right. So, here we are as a country. We've been running trillion-dollar deficits basically the last 4 years. This year is, quote, a small deficit. It's only around $700 billion. And this budget deal basically guarantees another $41 billion of additional deficit here over the next year on top of that. So I think it was a bad deal for the taxpayer. I get it that it was bipartisanship. We'd all like to see more of that in Washington. But again, to be truly bipartisan, either side needs to be willing to walk away from the table. I don't know that the Republicans really were on this one.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about the latest on the reforming flood insurance in Washington, and I think probably for our area that's a big deal.
Yeah, it's a huge deal. And I think that, I'm a conservative's conservative, and that means I have a natural, leeriness, if you will, with regard to government. It's sort of Reagan's notion of trust but verify. The same is true of any government activity. And so in this case, what they did was they came out with a new plan. They said, trust me, give me your money now, and I'll show you flood maps and actuarial tables later. And I voted no. I said, wait a minute. Show me, it's a Jerry Maguire movie, show me the money, show me the money. Show me the actuarial table, show me how you're coming up. Because you can come up with two very different insurance rates, one based on a whole lot of storms at high tide, big intensity in terms of storms.
Right.
Another one would have different assumptions and you'd end up with a very different insurance rate. And I think as consumers, as taxpayers and flood insurance consumers, it's clearly going to be reformed. I mean, that's the handwriting on the wall.
Right.
But the question is, shouldn't it be a transparent process as it is reformed? That's not where we are right now. The bill that came out of the House, went to the Senate, got locked up in the whole budget debate. So it's sort of in a floody waters, muddy waters in Washington D.C. right now. But it's causing a lot of turmoil. A lot of people back here at home are saying, wait a minute, I can't sell my house, I can't finance my house.
Absolutely.
I'm in no man's land.
Right.
And people want certainty with regard to one way or the other. And I'm going to hang up this phone as we're talking.
Right.
But anyway.
No problem.
I would say, let's see what happens 2014. There are a lot of question marks about what's going to happen. My perception, though, is that anytime there's that much noise, that much squeaking around a single subject, something's going to get done.
Something's got to get done. So the first 7 months, how have they been for you?
They've been busy. It's been largely sort of foundation work, if you want to call it that.
Right.
Build the foundation before you build the house. And so what happens is you get a lot of talented young people in a congressional office, but you know, you spend a lot of time saying, no, that's not how we approach that issue. This is how we'd write this paragraph. This is a system in place we want for this particular, you know, handling of these particular appointments or subjects. And so it's been very busy, just sort of in an operational sense of trying to get the office up and fully functional. We're about there, and we're going to dig in that much deeper as we go into 2014 on legislative issues.
And I think things take a little while to start, you know, rolling out as well. You know, you start things, but it can take years to really see any real proof in the pudding.
Sure.
So something important to myself, being not only an individual but a business owner, is obviously the Affordable Health Care Act. So I guess if I could just get, you know, your take on it.
My take on it is, Ronald Reagan once said that the closest thing to eternal life was a government program. There's a lot of truth to that. And so I think it's putting down roots, and I think it's a reality that all of us, both as taxpayers and as business owners and as individuals, are going to have to deal with. I think it's a harmful program. I've consistently voted against it, voted to stop it, voted to block it in any way that I could since I've been up there. I think its intention is in the right place, but you know, well-intentioned ideas without, again, valid actuarial assumptions underneath can end up disasters in Washington or in the business world. And I think that this one is proving to be a disaster because its core assumption is that a lot of young, healthy kids that feel somewhat invincible are going to sign up for health insurance. If they don't, you know, the system doesn't work, and there are going to be major costs that'll come back to individual owners of insurance and individual taxpayers being in the system.
Absolutely agree about that. Currently, right now, we see where the courts decided to release this week that some of the NSA's surveillance programs are likely unconstitutional. And so, what is your feeling about that?
I agree with them. You know, since I've gotten up there, I'm a conservative, as I said earlier, which is to say that I believe in individual liberty. And individual liberty is the hallmark of the American experiment, the hallmark of our republic, the hallmark of what has unleashed, in essence, the individual initiative that has led, you know, to the capitalistic system working in our country, and wealth creation, a lot of other good things. But you got to have individual liberty as one of the absolute foundations. So it's something that I've made noise about. We actually have an NSA reform bill that we've authored. I think that the government has stepped way too far. The idea that they've got to basically have a lead on a phone call from me to you, or from you to your grandmother or your mother, is something that just doesn't make sense from the standpoint of national security. And in any, you know, free society, there's always a tension between security and freedom. I think that the scale has been way too far over on the security side, and we need to pull it back over toward the freedom side.
Okay. Moving into 2014, what sort of issues can we expect Congress to tackle?
It'll be an interesting year because it's an election year, which oftentimes means nothing gets done. I think, though, that, you know, what you have is immediately you're going to have to deal with this debt ceiling debate in February. And that's going to be a really enormous debate. So government shutdown is now taken off the table based on the Ryan Murray budget deal. But there's going to be, I think, rather intense debate on whether and how you raise the debt ceiling increase and what is traded off as a consequence of doing so. I think the long and short of it is it gets raised. The question is what gets traded off for doing so. And that's going to be a much bigger debate. I suspect you're going to see lots of headlines on that front. What will be perceived as brinksmanship, but at the end of the day, it won't be, because in every instance, debt ceilings seem to get raised. It's something I'll be very reticent about, because I think we're at a real tipping point as a civilization in how much debt our country can afford and how much we can afford in essence, to hand off to the next generation. I mean, I think again, we're at a real problem point, and if we go much further down this debt line, we're going to see real consequences for the American dollar, the American way of life, and future inflation.
Right. Congressman Sanford, thank you so much for taking time to be here with us. And
My pleasure.
You absolutely enjoy your holidays.
You too. Thanks.
And we thank you so much for joining us on today's Talk of the Town.